Honored guests, please welcome your host for today, Tammy Nkadimeng.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to both our live audience and, of course, those of you who are joining us virtually today. Now, if you're joining us virtually today and you have a friend, a colleague, or a family member who hasn't joined us, you better rush and please tell them to join on the link, to register and join us, because they do not want to miss out on the insights today. Of course, today is the 2022's Partnership Connect, brought to us and to you by Momentum Corporate. My name is indeed Tammy Nkadimeng, and I will be your host for the duration of today. So now last year, we explored the science of success. And this year, after vigorous research, we're going to discuss return on resilience and how, most importantly, to sustain it. So what is return on resilience? Well, resilience refers to the ability to thrive and be highly resourceful in a world of constant change and in the face of extreme daily pressure and fierce competition. And if you reflect on the last 2 years, it was time defined by change and mostly by challenge. To small businesses, to organizations, to households, and to the workforce in totality, we all had to be resilient. So we've analyzed the top trends linked to success in a world post-COVID. What did we gain from our resilience, and how can we propel ourselves forward? But before I carry on, I'm thrilled to share with you that if you stay for the duration of the session today, the team have actually put together that you will receive 1.5 CPD points. So please make sure that you are staying with us online and live for the duration of the session to gain those CPD points. We'd also like the conversation to continue throughout and beyond today. So please do follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And please follow us at Momentum Corp 1 on Twitter and Momentum Corporate on LinkedIn. We want to see all your photos, your videos, your quotes. So ensure that you use the hashtag success for your people. So take all the pretty pictures with friends, family, your laptop, wherever you're joining us, but please make sure you use hashtag success for your people. Now, to guide us along today, please join me in welcoming our speakers. Dumo Mbete, the Chief Executive Officer of Momentum Corporate; Ncumisa Madinda, the Executive for Member Solutions at Momentum Corporate; Hugh Hacking, the Executive of Structured Investments and Annuities, Momentum Corporate; and of course, our honored guest speaker, Lillian Barnard, the Chief Executive Officer at Microsoft South Africa. They'll all be seated on the couch here today, waiting to share their valuable insights with all of us, and of course, with you online. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Now, it's important that before we look into the horizon, we need to take a moment to acknowledge where we are actually coming from. It's helpful to think for a moment on the key takeouts from last year's Partnership Connect session. Our 2021 insights showed us that remapping our approach to leadership and keeping pace with evolving employees requires substantial adaptiveness. Why did we say this? Because our research confirmed that a key driver to organizational success is an enabling culture, particularly during a crisis such as the COVID-19. Critical to an enabling culture is a noble purpose that resonates with employees, showing care, empathy, and support, also building trust with employees and offering relevant needs-based employee value proposition. An enabling culture co-created by leaders and employees, cultivates a high employee engagement and performance to ensure the delivery of strategy and helps business achieve their purpose. So that's actually how we got here today. Now let's look at the present and also to the future. So very shortly, we'll dive headfirst into a brief video that summarizes our current economic landscape and the business challenges that we are actually facing. It will also outline why, despite this, South African business leaders' outlook is positive and optimistic, and will touch on the plans they have established to overcome these challenges. Right then, let's jump in with the video.
Partnership Connect 2022, from resilience to renewal and beyond. The current climate has led to high retrenchments, increased liquidations, and fund membership declining. In 2020, we saw a spike in retrenchments. We also saw an increase in liquidations. Entertainment and hospitality up 165%. Manufacturing up 69%. Overall, we have seen a decline in fund membership. Small businesses down 23%. Medium businesses down 7.5%. Entertainment and hospitality down 23%. Construction down 30%. All in all, 23% of employers applied for a temporary suspension of retirement contributions. But business resilience still remains relatively high at 7.4 out of 10. This score is based on businesses face numerous challenges today: post-pandemic economy, poor economic prospects, work-from-home challenges, employee well-being and engagement, critical skills shortages and staff losses, digital acceleration, supply chain issues, and rising costs. How are businesses overcoming these challenges? Agility, alternatives, and contingencies. New marketing strategies and growth opportunities. Cost management and efficiencies. Employee enablement, culture and leadership. Strengthening the employee value proposition offering. Upskilling or reskilling. Flexible work practices. And digital transformation. But there is much to be optimistic about. 75% of businesses are cautious or optimistic about South Africa's economic future. Business confidence has increased. Only 4% of businesses expect a turnover decrease this year. 4 out of 5 business leaders aim to shift to full recovery, growth or reinvention by the end of 2022. Resilience is the key to renewal and beyond.
Wasn't that just incredible? I hope you're still joining us online. Feel free to please keep the conversation going using the hashtag #SuccessForYourPeople, and do follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn. You know, after a few years of knock after knock, it's normal to feel overwhelmed by the negative. It's so easy to focus on a landscape of retrenchments and also economic uncertainty. But as you can see, as you will continue to see, many businesses have the tenacity to weather the storm and, most importantly, to bounce back. These are the businesses that give us hope, and they fuel our collective push for upwards and onwards. But it's only through effective collaboration between leaders and employees that this momentum can be sustained. So let me hand over to someone who knows all about this. This is Ncumisa Madunda, Executive for Member Solutions at Momentum Corporate. Please, a loud round of applause for her as she makes her way to stage.
Thank you, Tammy. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to everybody joining us virtually. Now, at Momentum Corporate, we are in constant communication with business leaders who are at the helm of keeping their businesses afloat. And one of the things they have indicated to us is that they are under pressure to actually manage financial stability. And some of the things that they are doing is to improve sales and to reduce costs and to manage risk. However, they are not the only ones that are under pressure. Our employees are actually showing signs of being under emotional and financial stress. And we know that these things have a direct impact on overall well-being as well as engagement levels. So now the leaders are also now under pressure to find a way to balance the need for in-person interaction as well as the greater flexibility while still leveraging from the work from home productivity levels that we have seen. We have also seen retrenchments over the past 2 years, and of course, these have led to increased workload for those that are left behind in the business. To add to the complexity, leaders have indicated that they are still finding it very challenging to find skilled employees. So all of these things that I have mentioned, they are putting leaders in a position where they really have to prioritize agility as well as adapting to change. Now we have looked at the overall well-being. We've looked at it from the leadership side as well as the employee side. Now, if we look at the impact of the pandemic as well as the current economic climate, the leaders have still scored above 7 for most wellness indicators, and this is a good thing. However, there is still room for improvement because if we look at the energy level score, it's actually the lowest. And this is because of the extended pandemic period as well as the ongoing economic crisis. The second thing that we looked at is the leadership team support. It does look like leaders have been supporting each other over the past 2 years. However, 18% still feels there has been a drop in connectedness compared to 2020. And about 5.9 score, the leaders are still finding it very challenging to lead under these circumstances. Now we place massive expectations on our leaders and a lot of pressure. And the real question is that, how does that stack up against their actual effectiveness? Now, between the leaders as well as the employees, they generally agree on a lot of things when it comes to leadership effectiveness. However, there is one topic they do not agree upon, and that is the topic around flexible working options. Obviously, the employees are wanting to see more of the flexible working hours and flexible conditions. Now it means that leaders need to take that preference into consideration going forward if we would like to still maintain an employer of choice status. Now, the other obvious disconnect lies in the expectations of the employees. Now, the employees have indicated to us that actually the leaders are performing less effectively than expected. Now, I know this may come as a surprise to the leaders. Now, employees are placing expectation at about 8.3 and actually saying that the leaders are performing at about 6.9. Now, that's a massive disconnect. Now, this gives an opportunity to the leaders to actually get closer to the employees to understand where does this perception actually come from and what could be some of the underlying issues and what could be some of the needs, employee needs that were not met or still not met in the past 2 years and going forward. Now, of course, we move on now to a position where we say one of the key drivers in enabling culture is actually making sure that we are in continuous engagement with our employees as well as communication. So now we see that leaders not only need to worry about recovery, growing the business, and supporting employees. They also need to worry about their own well-being and also need to worry about their own development. Now, we also recognize that stress without recovery can also lead to burnout, and this is something that leaders need to keep an eye on. Now, moving on to the employee wellness or well-being. 14% of our employees are indicating that they can't cope with work stress. 22% are indicating that they also can't cope with home stress. And over a third is indicating that they can't cope with the financial stress. Now, while employees believe that they are quite effective at what they do, over a third has indicated to us that they are feeling low levels of energy. And some of them have confessed to actually feeling negative towards their current jobs. And that's a big concern. And this points out to the risk of burnout that we touched on earlier on, because we know that employee wellness can have a direct impact on productivity levels as well as engagement levels. Now, coming back to the retrenchment story, when we look at the score or the average score for employee wellness, we see that it's sitting at about 7.5. Again, it's a good thing. But it quickly drops to about 5.9, where the employees have been impacted by retrenchments. Now, these are the employees that are left behind because of what I indicated earlier, the increased workload. And nearly 70% of them are the ones that are actually feeling negative towards their current jobs. Now, we have asked the employees how were they planning to improve their overall well-being going forward. There's 4 themes that have come out of the research. One of them is improving financial well-being. People have spoken about limiting their spending, reducing their debts, saving more, and finding alternative streams of income. The second topic that emerged was improving mental well-being. People spoke about work-life balance, and they were quite specific this time. They spoke about taking leave more regularly. They spoke about prioritization, and they also talk about going for counseling, which is a good thing. And the third theme that emerged was improving physical well-being. They spoke about exercising more, and also, most importantly for me, they spoke about paying attention to their nutrition. Then the last theme that emerged was upskilling themselves. Employees have probably reflected over the past 2 years, and everybody feels they need to further their studies, they need to register for short courses, or they need to go for training just to upskill themselves. And these are the topics that came up, or the themes that emerged. Now, in conclusion, there's 3 key takeouts out of this research. The first one is around the importance of employee well-being. And we know, as we indicated, that financial, physical, and mental well-being is very important because it has a direct impact on productivity levels as well as engagement levels. The second one is that if employees feel negative towards their jobs, it actually means that will also have a negative impact on productivity levels again, as well as engagement levels. And for this one in particular, it has a ripple effect on overall organizational culture. And this is something that the leaders need to pay attention to. And lastly, leaders themselves have indicated to us that they have seen a great decline in overall employee well-being, particularly in post-retrenchment workforces. Now, leaving it for leaders to act and to act fast. Thank you very much. I will now hand over to Tammy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ncumisa, for helping us understand the lay of the land, but also just painting a picture of the state of employee and leaders' wellness. All in all, the impact of well-being can be attributed to the workplace that faces constant change. So then, how can companies rise and meet the change head on? Look, whether you're pro or not pro technology, technology has a fundamental role in this. Still, we are incredibly privileged to have a trailblazing expert to connect the dots for us. So please help me in welcoming, a very warm welcome, please, to Lillian Barnard, CEO of Microsoft South Africa, to deliver today's keynote address.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Dumo Ngcomisor and to the Momentum corporate team, Q. Thank you, everybody, just for inviting me this morning, and it is such a pleasure to be here with you today. My talk is a wonderful segue to what you've just mentioned, Ngcomisor, because Microsoft is doing a lot of work trying to provide thought leadership, not only from a technology perspective, but also trying to give leaders some guidance as to how we need to navigate this not so new normal anymore. We've certainly lived in an unprecedented time, and the pandemic and global economic climate has shown us one of the biggest learnings, and that is no organization is immune to a crisis, and nor that any business is 100% resilient. But it has also taught us that those that were fortified with digital capabilities were able to respond faster and bounce back from this crisis much quicker. Now, resilience, as Tammy already mentioned, it is this ability to quickly adapt to changing market conditions. It has become the hallmark for success in today's environment. And whether you talk about resilience in people, resilience in organizations, or even resilience in countries overall, it is a profoundly relevant term for us to continue to ponder on. Technology has been an enabler and will continue to be one because it will help businesses empower their employees, engage their customers to make sure that they prepare themselves for the future. And in the early days of remote work, how many of you remember 2020 when we all had to pack up and go home? It was quite daunting. You needed the right technology to not only enable yourself, but if you were a leader, to enable your entire organization. As we move forward, we will continue to look to technology solutions to lead the way, but on top of it, we're going to need so many different things as well. Another crucial consequence of the past 2.5 years is that we are not the same people who went home in 2020. We've changed profoundly, and so did our employees. The collective experience has left a lasting imprint, and it is fundamentally changing to how we are defining work today. Hybrid has now emerged as the next great disruption. This blended model of some people at the office and some people working from home is still very difficult to navigate. As Microsoft, we only went back to the office in May, and we're also still trying to find our own way because it was so much easier when everyone was at home, because we knew how to respond to that. And it is true to say that leaders are still battling to find the right answers and trying to figure out what hybrid will look like for their organization. And it is true that one size does not fit all. One thing is very true is that employees are very clear. They value the benefit of hybrid work. I do too as a leader. And they just love the upsides that flexible work brings. As business leaders, we are mere stewards and students of the moment. We must understand this is the age of the employee. We will learn when we listen more. And we should not be asking, should we allow hybrid work? But we should rather investigate and say, how do we make hybrid work for our organizations and for our people? And the challenge for every organization and for every business leader is that we have to meet these new expectations, but at the same time also balance business outcomes in a very unpredictable global economy. Leaders have to navigate this uncertainty, and I'm going to share with you some of the results of the 2020 Work Trend Index that Microsoft conducted in 31 countries across 31,000 people. The findings reveal an urgent opportunity, the challenge, the responsibility for leaders to approach the transition with a growth mindset, or we risk getting left behind. I'm going to share with you 7 points. Number 1 is that employees have a new with it equation. The experience of the past 2 years has reshaped our priorities, our identities, and our worldview, drawing a bright line to what's important, our health, our time, our family, our purposes, and what's not. As a result, employees have a new with it equation. And what people want from work and what they're willing to give in return has changed. And we must realize that. So the power dynamic has shifted from the perks of free food and the corner office, because employees are telling us that they are wanting something very different from work. In fact, 47% of respondents say that they are more likely to prioritize their family and personal life over work. 50% are saying that they're going to prioritize their health and their well-being. So priorities have shifted, and employees are acting on these newfound priorities. The desire for flexibility has extended to leadership teams as well. And the data shows that the great resignation, the big quit, the great reshuffle, whatever we may want to call it, is far from over. Some of the top reasons why employees quit, and Nomisa mentioned some of these, is looking after their personal well-being. It is for mental health reasons. They are looking for better work-life balance. This one is staggering: lack of confidence in their leaders, and also the lack of flexible work policies. So employees are going to make very different choices going forward. For leaders, this is creating a new challenge, and not only in attracting and retaining new employees, but also engaging our current employees. There is no erasing our lived experience of the last 2 years. So meeting employee expectations will require a mind shift. The with it equation has changed, and there is no going back. The best leaders will create a culture that embraces flexibility, prioritizes employee well-being, and understanding that this will become a competitive advantage to build a thriving organization and also focus on long-term growth. Number 2 is, how are we as leaders going to make the commute to the office with it? Because the last 2 years have shown us that we can be equally effective at home too. So why get into your car and take the drive? The world has shifted, and it's a big opportunity for us to reimagine the office. We need to provide clarity as to why and when, and how often people should come into the office. And I can tell you, I had that same challenge too. In fact, I'm now selling to my teams as to why they need to come to the office. And what we've done is that we've standardized on Mondays and Fridays, because those are typically our internal days where we do our sales reviews. Because what tends to happen is that someone goes in on a Monday and there's nobody. Someone goes in on a Tuesday, there's nobody. Someone goes in on the Wednesday, there's nobody. And what happens? They never return. So what we've tried to do is to specify the days where you can create, internal team meetings and also have some community, and also at least for the canteen to know to cook, right? Because cooking for one person is a bit challenging. So hybrid employees are saying their biggest challenge is understanding why they need to come into the office. We need to establish team agreements. In fact, that is what Microsoft is advocating. We're sharing that with our customers. And we need to make sure that we execute with radical intentionality to make sure that we define the purpose of the office and what does in-person collaboration looks like. And there is no one size fits all. This is what we're learning. So this intentionality of making hybrid work will take the right hardware, software, but most importantly, it will also take the right culture. Organizations that fail to grasp this new intentionality of what does it mean to get back to the office will miss out on the true benefits on how to make hybrid work. Number 3, we have to rebuild social capital in this hybrid work. In fact, employees are telling us one of the most felt aspects of hybrid work was the impact it has had on relationships. The Work Trend Index showed that teams have become more siloed. In fact, during the pandemic, we had to become intentional about, scheduling check-in meetings. Remember pre-2020, there was never a schedule to just check in with each other, right? Because the office created a conducive environment for us to socialize in a very organic way. The majority of hybrid employees are saying that they've maintained their relationships, but the challenge is remote employees, because a lot of employees have semi-graded elsewhere in the country. They live in very different places. They're choosing different spaces to go and do their work. And remote employees are saying to us that they are struggling to build relationships at the office. And in a digital-first work world, we can also not solely rely on the office to help us rebuild the social capital that we've lost. And leaders should not use the return to the office, and I'm very tempted to do this as well, as the sole way to rebuild social capital. We're going to have to inject some creativity into our cultures. Therefore, leaders must be intentional about reconnecting both hybrid, remote, and brand new employees into the fabric of the organization. 43% of leaders are saying that relationship building has become the greatest challenge for employees, but it is a priority with looking at. Building social capital is crucial for organizational success, and research shows us that the benefits of thriving relationships are good for our teams. And employees who have good relationships at work are reporting that they have better productivity and also better well-being. So as leaders, let's prioritize, relationship building at the office. Let's make sure that we provide our employees with the necessary support and also provide a culture that has the right level of psychological safety so that employees can actually put up their hands and say, hey, I need help, and where they can also be vulnerable and lean on each other. And to reap the benefits of social capital, leaders need to make the time and space for employees to build their networks, and we have to ensure that this does not feel too transactional. Next, we need to make sure that we combat digital exhaustion. We all have found some new hours in the day. All of a sudden, we now have a 26-hour day, right? Because the things we used to do, like driving to the office and running some errands, we no longer do. And now what have we done? We literally have plugged a whole bunch of meetings into our calendars. As we look to create a better future of work, we need to address digital exhaustion and make this a priority. We need to reduce employee workloads. They are working too hard and just too long. And we need to balance synchronous and asynchronous collaboration and encourage people to take breaks. We've been asking our teams to plug breaks into their calendars. The reality is such that very few people are disciplined to follow through on it. I also have some breaks in my lunchtime, and I'm trying to hang on to it. And it becomes pretty hard because we've now realized that we can be hyper-productive in this hybrid world. Teams need to create new norms and to make sure that they reduce the time spent in meetings, and they should be confident to hit the off switch button. But it is very important that this is not a solo effort, so that the people who are comfortable and confident to practice it does not feel victimized. But it is much better when this becomes a leader-led and team-led movement to make sure that we establish some sustainable practices. Next, we need to make sure that our policies cater for extreme flexibility, Dumo. It is empowerment through choice. We need to put choices in front of our people. And we have to make sure that there's supreme clarity for them, making sure it lives up to their expectations and their needs. There's a clear vision and a plan and policies to show us the way. These decisions will impact everything from how we shape culture in the future to how we retain and attract new employees, but also it will drive a culture for future innovation. Our managers are key. The past 2 years have taught us that culture will stand and fall on managers. Managers should not feel stuck between their leaders and their people. They should feel empowered to drive the change. Managers are the critical bridge for us right now. They're going to be the dot connectors because there are just so many unknowns. They play a crucial role in fostering team bonds, making sure that, our teams broaden their networks. And how often don't we say that people don't quit companies, they quit managers? But this is a unique opportunity for us to empower our managers to make sure that we advance our own cultures in this new work. While policy is set at the top, we have to decentralize decision-making and give more autonomy to our managers so that they can make the change on our behalf. At Microsoft, we encourage our managers to establish team agreements so that they can help us understand what employees really want from this new norm. Lastly, we need to look at tools and technology, which is absolutely critical. We have to reimagine our physical workspaces. I remember walking into the office the first time when we came back. I looked at some of these rooms and I thought, oh my word, you're not intelligent enough. We need some intelligent rooms in this building. And we need to make sure that whilst the policies are there, it is actually the physical workspaces that are going to make the difference. And we are going to go through a whole new refurbishment as a result. So the office space needs to create that physical and digital words that people absolutely want. Just think about the spaces we've created for ourselves at home. I found that I'm now trying to recreate my home space at the office. How strange is that? And because we really have become totally comfortable. And from a culture perspective, we have to make sure that everyone is included. How do we get everyone to participate in hybrid meetings? Because it is not that easy. Data suggests that we are making progress in technology and looking at spaces, but also from a cultural perspective, we are still struggling. So this messy middle of some people at the office, some people at home, is the true challenge. So we really have to consider, what does hybrid work etiquette look like? That is a new word now. What is the etiquette when we all sit in a meeting? So we need to look at digital whiteboards. And back to the point I made around when you walk into a room, is it intelligent enough for you to have a very productive meeting? Meeting rooms must be set up with the right technology, Mr. CFO. Which means it must have the right cameras, high definition streams where you can see the people online and the people online can see the people in the room. It must have intelligent speakers that actively follow the speaker. Individual names and profiles must be clearly displayed, and there must be meeting transcripts. And our collaboration tool, Microsoft Teams, have features such as live captions, live transcription, the raise your hand function, reactions, and it allows people to participate in the conversation and chiming in nonverbal ways without interrupting the speaker. In fact, we believe that it is good practice for everyone to join the Teams meeting, regardless of whether you are in the room, because what tends to happen is that people in the room have their own meeting while people online are wondering what's happening. So that shared experience in terms of creating that hybrid work etiquette is absolutely fundamental. So you can clearly see that there is a lot to be considered to make sure that we truly make hybrid work for our employees. COVID-19 has left a lasting imprint on work and will have an impact well into the future. And the new with it equation doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. Employees value flexibility and well-being, we now know that, and they've got some great expectations. But if every organization can reimagine work, this will ultimately become a win-win. Giving people freedom and flexibility is quite important, and it's actually good business if you now look at it, just given some of the feedback that we're getting. Rethinking the office, rebuilding social capital, empowering our managers is super important for sustainable, flexible work. Technology will continue to play a key role, but very important, this moment truly calls for a leadership mind shift. As the world continues to evolve, organizations that take a digital culture first and a learn it all approach will ultimately come out ahead. Thank you for listening to me today, and I hope you found this insightful, and thank you, Duma Ncumisa Q. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for that thought-provoking keynote address. I must say, you painted a picture that was so clear in my head. I could imagine myself going to a workplace where the doors automatically open when you speak to them, just like really in the movies. But thank you for really painting, a picture for us on how technology is required in the workplace when it comes to the demands and the needs required. I think we all walk away feeling inspired by, I love how you put it, making hybrid work. I love the play on words there. And also to consider, the flexibility in the culture, because culture really does filter down to everything else. But most importantly, I heard you very loud and clear, Lillian, policies. We heard you on the policies. So without further ado, I'm going to ask us to please just pay attention to the screens and just arm ourselves with more knowledge on what it is that is driving growth in 2022 and beyond.
Leaders identified 2 growth drivers in 2022 and beyond. Driver 1, enhancing business strategies and practices. Businesses need to acquire new clients, leverage new opportunities, diversify their offering, develop new marketing tactics, and source alternative revenue. Efficiencies. Businesses also need to find efficiencies, manage costs, and optimize resources. Executing on their digital transformation strategy, which includes automation, client experience, innovation, and agility, is key to this. But only 26% of businesses feel well advanced in the execution of their digital strategy. Those that don't keep up will be left behind, and those that move fast will benefit long term. Employees believe that technology will help them be more efficient, allow them to work from anywhere, and have a positive impact on the company. They face difficulty in switching off after hours, affecting well-being. Risk management. Leaders recognize the need to have contingency and continuity plans in place to protect livelihoods and stay ahead of the competition. For many, this is core to their growth strategy. Sustainability. It is no surprise that both leaders and employees scored sustainability at a 7.8 as a key component for their company and employee benefits provider. Over 55% of businesses want initiatives to promote business sustainability, income, gender equality, diversity, and inclusivity. Driver 2, enabling human capital. Let's start with the trends. Culture. This year, we tracked various elements of culture. 2 out of 3 employees feel connected to their organization. Over a third of employees have low energy levels, feel negative about work, and are at risk for burnout. While employers rate low engagement at 30%, only 20% of employees feel less engaged. Open conversations are necessary to understand this disconnect. Employees feel supported by their leaders, but leaders score themselves higher, 1.1% more on average, when it comes to supporting their employees. As employees feel cared for and supported, their engagement levels increase. An enabling culture, developing talent internally, having appropriate retention strategies, and enhancing employee value propositions is extremely important now. Employee reskilling. Most employers recognize that upskilling or reskilling employees is an important driver of growth. They are struggling to attract specialist and professional skills. There is a disconnect in employee expectations. For example, 38% of employees want information and communications technology training, while only 25% of employers offer this. Current efforts to address critical skills gaps are not always successful or effective. Businesses must partner with their employees to emphasize how training can provide tangible advantages as their work changes. Work flexibility. 2/3 of employees are still working from home, all or some of the time. Half of the leaders say the same about their workforces. 22% of leaders say they may still change to a hybrid work model. Some tension exists between the two around work-from-home models. But the hybrid model is here to stay. The question is no longer about where to work, but rather about flexible hours and conditions. The Great Resignation. Over half of employers are concerned that employees are reassessing and may end up resigning for alternative income sources. 19% of employees, with an additional 21% being unsure, are in fact considering leaving their employers. This accounts for 1 in 4 millennials, 17% of Gen X, and 11% of baby boomers. Those employees left behind face low morale and are often forced to pick up the slack, leading to work overload and emotional stress. The main reasons that people want to leave are salary package, leadership style, company culture, work-life balance, and needing a change. Only 9% of leaders recognize that leadership and culture drive resignations, showing a critical underestimation on their part. It is critical for leaders to understand and address the elements of their culture and leadership styles that cause employees to disengage and leave. Contractors or gig economy. Most business owners, contractors, and gig workers surveyed indicated that they started because of retrenchment, retirement, or wanting to leave a corporate environment. Their top 5 financial needs relate to retirement and other savings, investments, health, critical illness and income disability cover. 44% of employers will be recruiting only contractors or a mix of contract and permanent employees to bring in diverse views, or due to flexibility, budget constraints, project-based work, uncertainty, learnerships, or seasonality. The traditional employee benefits industry has not catered to these temporary workers. Our role is to make financial solutions accessible to the wider employed South African population. Employee value proposition and benefits. Last year, leaders rated 4.2 out of 5. We saw that all elements of the employee value proposition are important to all stakeholders. This year, we wanted to establish how the pandemic and other factors influenced this, and they rated each element at an average of 3.7 out of 5. Value-adding services, rewards, and workspaces account for the largest reduction from leaders. But employee benefits score 4.3 out of 5 with medium and large business leaders, and 3.5 with small businesses. Financial advisors suggest that benefit providers enhance product, price, service, support, and use technology to enhance user-friendliness. Using AI and other virtual tools will also improve engagement. Leaders must evaluate the relevance of their employee value proposition and take an integrated approach to include financial and non-financial benefits. In closing, given today's climate, employees consider health insurance, income disability benefits, and emergency savings as more important than ever. But less than 10% want to swap their current benefit solution, so current solutions are vitally important. While the landscape is in flux, leaders are optimistic about the future.
Leaders are optimistic about the future. I love that closing line. Look, I'm being enlightened today, and I certainly hope you are too. Now, if you have some nuggets that are dropping, please do go onto LinkedIn and Twitter and drop those nuggets for everybody else to share. We are, of course, on Momentum Corp 1 on Twitter and Momentum Corporate on LinkedIn. Remember to use the hashtag success for your people. Now, that's not just for the people online. I also need you in the room to do the same. So feel free to take pictures and videos and to share them with everybody. Now, every year, Momentum Corporate Research is an invaluable tool in understanding the needs and the wants of South Africa's employees and employers, rather. Today, we've learned a great deal already, but we've only just begun. So sit tight and listened to the next speaker. I'd like to now invite Dumo Mbete, the CEO of Momentum Corporate, to drive home the key takeaways and outline a pathway forward for us. Please, a round of applause for Dumo.
Thank you, Tammy, for the warm introduction. Lillian, wow. I think you dropped some pearls there. Really a lot for us to reflect on, a lot for us to absorb, but more importantly, for us to execute. Now that we know, we cannot simply sit with this knowledge and do nothing. We can't unknow what we now know. And I think a lot of our colleagues are also watching, so I could feel, even from a personal perspective now, like, hey, Dumo, you need to take some notes here and make sure when you get back into the office, you know, you really show up as someone who actually paid attention, as Lillian shared her keynote today. Really, really appreciate it. Our annual research initiative is an important opportunity for us just to mine specific and up-to-date insights that enables us to understand the big picture, but also without missing any of the details. And I always say that it's more than simply about statistics. It informs strategy, and it also helps us to build a vision for the future that is actually rooted in reality. Because you can imagine, if we're not rooted in reality, what then starts to happen is we find ourselves building castles in the clouds. So this morning, I'd like to spend a few minutes on the key themes that emerged from the research that we conducted, and also couple that with Dumo's list of practical learnings that we can all take back with us to our respective teams. So here is how I think we can make the shift beyond renewal and really deliver on this elusive return on resilience. So firstly, a key insight that emerged is that businesses have actually been incredibly resilient throughout the crisis. And as Misa pointed out, the outlook actually into the next year is quite positive, with actually the theme for a lot of businesses being about growth. If you look at some of the trading updates we've seen across the JSE recently, you know, they largely seem to be quite upbeat, and in most cases actually beating investor expectations. Therefore, as businesses, we should continue overcoming business challenges by dynamically enhancing our business practices and creating an enabling culture for our employees. Secondly, it hasn't been easy. And really, with a score of only 5.9, leaders are still finding it challenging to lead. And a third of those leaders have actually indicated that they found it very difficult. They could have simply said difficult, but they went for very difficult. So although business resilience has been quite high in the last 30 months, this indicator does reflect that it came at quite a price. And that the temporary adrenaline rush that we gained from crisis excellence. We were all so proud of what we achieved. Geez, guys, we're working from the office. Our sales teams are delivering virtually. I can imagine how it was for financial advisors across the length and breadth of South Africa when you're trying to deliver solutions to your clients, and suddenly we can no longer have the coffee. We can no longer have that presentation in their offices. The reality, however, I would like to position is that crisis excellence is running out. We need a more sustainable approach, and this is required in order to ensure that crisis excellence actually becomes a return on resilience. Examples here of what we can potentially work on include consciously working at breaking this reliance on crisis excellence. And another example here would be holding debrief sessions with your teams to actually take some of these learnings forward throughout the organization. And as Lillian pointed out, allowing some time in your day to think and to strategize, and continuing to build your own and your employees' well-being. Now, Lillian spoke about digital acceleration. And indeed, we recognize the acceleration in digital transformation, which has been driven by the pandemic. And we do note that 26% of businesses actually feel well advanced in the execution of their digital strategy. But you can imagine, only 26%. So many actually feel that they are on the back foot. Now, fortunately, those who have moved will be long-term winners. So to the movers, I say, keep moving. Keep executing on your digital transformation plans, whilst keeping a steady eye on the emerging trends and on the external environment that continues to adapt and to evolve. Now, something I'd like to mention just around this digital acceleration is that it has also come with a dark side. Cybersecurity threats, which have now actually become cybersecurity reality. So many incidents we've seen in the last few years, and it was quite perturbing in looking at the research that only about 26% of the businesses we surveyed actually had cybersecurity insurance. Something to think about. As we move on, another notable disconnect lies in the experience of employees. And here an example is that employees feel their leaders actually perform less effectively than expected. Now, I look at this and I think, geez, we've all, again, been so proud. And I mean, we really feel, guys, we've done a decent job here. But the reality is that, that equation has shifted now. And it shows that leaders need to stop assuming that they are performing as expected and rather engage to listen to employees and understand their perceptions, their issues, preferences, motivations, and their needs. I think it's time for us as leaders to take heed of the Johari window effect. So often we miss the blind spot. And it's time that we recognize the need for 360 feedback as well as continuous engagement and the value that these bring in driving and enabling culture. Breakfast, what feedback is the breakfast of champions. So truly, if we're to be champions, we've got to, take a dose of feedback once in a while. We may not like what we hear, but we have to embrace it if we are to build an enabling culture. Next up, we start delving a bit deeper into organizational culture. And leaders here recognize that organizational culture is an important component of an employee value proposition, and that leadership styles must align to culture and values. But now, employees confirm that culture and leadership styles are actually often the reasons why they leave a company. But now you find that when we ask leaders why employees leave, the tendency, and we've done this around the boardroom table a few times, and we'll say, No, so-and-so left for a better opportunity. No, so-and-so left for a better salary. But very few leaders, and even in our research, this was consistent, very few leaders highlighted leadership style and culture as the reasons why employees would leave. So sometimes we are blind to issues in our own organizations, or we underestimate the impact of culture on talent retention. Recognize these dynamics and understand that there is a need to address the elements of our culture that are causing employees to disengage and ultimately, unfortunately, to leave. It's tough securing talent. So if you have talent, you've got to do all you can to keep that talent. We all acknowledge the emotional and financial toll that COVID and the changing world of work has had on employees. So now we are talking about employee experience and how these workplace changes have actually affected that. For many employees, this has had a negative impact on their well-being, as Misa pointed out earlier, and engagement levels as well, with leaders saying around 30% of employees are less engaged today. Our research also shows that while most employees feel that they are actually effective at their jobs, over a third rate their energy levels as quite low. And, I mean, they wouldn't say it to you, but they do feel a bit negative about their work. So that's another thing we need to reflect on. As Misa mentioned earlier, those ratings drop even further in post-retrenchment workforces. Guys, beware the high five. We high-fived ourselves for resilient, cost-cutting, doing more with less. But we have to continue to remain mindful of the effects that pandemic and workplace changes have had on employee experience. Let's continue to show care and empathy and support, because ultimately what we want to do is to build trust and engagement. Let's continue to evaluate the relevance of our EVPs, recognizing that an effective EVP actually takes an integrated approach into account. And here we look at both financial and non-financial rewards and benefits that we have to take into account. So although we've had to make some tough decisions to keep our businesses resilient, we must remain conscious of the breaking points in the system. Next up, we go back to the leaders. If we look at the impact of the pandemic and the current economic climate on leaders' overall well-being, leaders score themselves above 7 on well-being indicators. But we then note that there's still much room for improvement, as a third of leaders rated their energy levels at 6 and less, which then highlights the impact of what has been an extended crisis period on leaders' physical and mental health. Therefore, we have to start recognizing our own well-being and taking care of ourselves. 36 months ago, as if we were in an aircraft and the pressure dropped, the masks came down, and what did leaders do? Leaders took time to place the mask on their colleagues, on their broader teams, on their organizations, on their families, and forgot to put the oxygen mask on themselves. And today I tell you, the oxygen is running out, and leaders are telling us in their own assessment of their own energy levels that the oxygen is indeed running out. So I know sometimes we check out when we're being given instructions by the cabin crew before that plane takes off. Please place the mask on your face before you assist your neighbor. So as leaders, we need to recognize that stress without recovery depletes energy levels, and it will eventually lead to burnout, health issues, and poor performance in the long run. Misa has spoken about the fact that increasingly, and in the research that we have seen, employees want to see that their organizations are working towards a greater good. We all recognize the urgency of environmental and social issues. So actually, it's no surprise that these initiatives scored highly in our research. So let's continue our involvement in initiatives that promote business sustainability, as well as income and gender diversity, gender equality, broader diversity, and inclusion. This ultimately will help build trust with consumers, employees, and the communities in which you operate. Because ultimately, it is about shared value that we want to generate. Now, let's move on to skills. We've been talking about, hey, we must train, we want to equip, we want to skill. And I think, Lillian, what you've shared today has actually played a big role in ticking that very important box around accumulating more knowledge and skills, which we all need to do. And now that we know that upskilling and reskilling employees is an important driver of growth, there is a bit of a flip side here. Our research reflects that actually current efforts to address critical skills gaps in our businesses are not always successful or even effective. In addition, another emerging trend is the Great Resignation. So this simply exacerbates the situation. Employees want to develop, employees want to grow. So we must continue to prioritize upskilling and reskilling our staff, partnering with them on this learning journey. We have to continue to improve our organizational agility and the ability to adapt to change. But, something forced me to reflect as I looked at some of the earlier stats, because the feedback from employees says, perhaps as leaders, we are not performing as well as we think we are performing. So it's actually quite imperative that leaders equip themselves with skills and knowledge that will enable them to run successful organizations, not only in this new normal, but beyond. So we had our strategy session last week, and we talked about InsurTech. We talked about AI, blockchain, fourth industrial revolution. And at some point, we looked around the room and we realized, colleagues, on some level, we also need to take some time out to learn and to upskill ourselves around these very critical topics which are relevant to any business that wants to position for itself for success in the long term. So once again, first aid is required to the leaders of financial advice firms, leaders of organizations across South Africa. Building learning organizations is key to success. And leaders who appreciate the value of continuous learning will be those who succeed in the long term. Lastly, to the topic of hybrid work, making hybrid work work. Thank you, Lillian. I hope you haven't got a copyright on that, because I can see us borrowing that quite a lot. It's such a quotable quote. On the topic of flexible working practices, there is really some tension between employees and employers. But it is clear that the hybrid model is here to stay. So this brings front and center what we referred to last year as the Goldilocks paradox. You know Goldilocks, ne? I hope everyone knows Goldilocks. I don't want to have to now go back into time. But this paradox says we must work together to find that, that perfect center, that middle ground that everyone will be happy with. That will also then ensure our businesses are successful at the same time. Many employees want to continue to enjoy flexibility, leaders as well. So leaders will need to take these preferences into account if indeed they want to be able to call themselves an employer of choice. So when I talk to leaders, the consensus is that prioritizing the human experience is a key enabler for growth. Before you see the title, before you see the person walking into your office, there's an entire human being. This means that we must focus on the employee experience to create companies where people are engaged and where they want to work, where they can be themselves, their best selves, and where they can truly make a difference. So now, as we bring this back home, from an employee benefits perspective, we understand that clients actually want relevant and customized communication. We have done extensive research to understand our members' preferences when it comes to engagement. And this is really based now on the behaviors and the latest trends that they've actually become used to. So we understand that different life events and transactions require different channels of engagement. So in knowing that, we continue to develop appropriate multi-channel environments to enable our clients to interact with us as they choose. This ultimately will improve client experience and it will allow more South Africans to access financial education as well as to access financial solutions. But how do you do this if you don't have contact information? It's all well and good, we've got these nice gadgets, but if we don't even have a cell number, guys, I think that's something that we all need to own. Employers, advisors, financial service providers. We have to really make sure that member contact information, which is actually quite vital in this process, is something we need to work on. So that's why we do have initiatives in place to obtain contact details and enable appropriate and regular communication with our members. Let's have a look.
We are on a mission to ensure the success of your people because that's our business. We believe that everyone deserves expert support in making crucial life decisions. That's why our digital client engagement strategy aims to make financial education and solutions accessible to the broader employed South African community. As we look to the future, we are leveraging the transformative impact that the digital environment can have in reaching more and more people. As part of our Reinvent and Grow strategy, Momentum Corporate is transforming from an insurer to an insurtech. On this strategic journey, we will accelerate digital transformation, grow distribution, and reposition our brand. We've also made some choices across the business. For member solutions, this means enabling members to achieve successful outcomes. Given the size of our client base, digital transformation is key to this, scaling member engagement through online channels. Our ambition to transform our business is a brave one. But the good news is, our clients are ready for change. Our research shows a positive shift away from apathy. Employees want to know that their benefits offer value for money and are meeting their needs. By focusing on our vision for the future, we are building an attractive value proposition with an exceptional and unique client engagement strategy through digital acceleration. As we all know, our mobile phones are an integral part of our everyday lives. This makes them the most convenient and cost-effective channel to use by simply showing up where people already are. By supporting mobile-friendly digital channels that are light on data usage, we can open the door for our members to access information, education, and self-service capabilities, making financial education and solutions more accessible. We do this through a range of touchpoints and offerings, including the Smart Benefit Statement, the member website, our Momentum app, WhatsApp, and our smart solutions. In the last year, we issued 400,000 smart benefit statements and had over 173,000 logins. This digital statement educates members about their benefits, plus it has some exciting new features. New members are digitally onboarded with their smart benefit statement. Members can update their beneficiary nominations and flex their family protector funeral benefit. Members can also chat to a benefit counselor via our live web chat feature. WhatsApp is also a low-cost way for us to engage, with Funds at Work now on the channel and generating great excitement from members. Here, they can get a benefit value, a form, a guide, a detailed benefit statement, or they can contact us. Members can also update their details to stay in touch, and all data is protected thanks to our secure login process. We've also revamped our member website for a modern interface and easy user experience. Last year, around 70,000 transactions and statements were processed via the site. Over 570,000 emails and SMSs were sent out to subscribed members. To complement these digital channels, we've designed a range of smart solutions to educate members about their options at specific life events, like when they change jobs, transition to retirement, or require medical underwriting. But digital accessibility should still cater to the human experience. This is why all our digital solutions are supported with a human coach, a benefit counselor always ready to answer every question and guide members on their journey to success. Because the success of every employed South African is what it's all about, and the dynamic world of digital is how we'll make it happen.
A round of applause, please, for Dumo Mbete. I think before we move on to the next speaker, Dumo, it's incredible and amazing to really see the Momentum Corporate's expertise at play and at work. And it's quite evident from the research that leaders are really facing an ever-changing and challenging work landscape. But I'd like to give you an opportunity. Do you have any remarks, closing remarks on that?
Yeah, Tammy, if the last 2 years have taught us anything, is that change is constant. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the change that we will encounter is change that does not come with a user manual. Mm-hmm. We've had to navigate COVID-19, the lockdowns. Just when we thought that was, past us, we now have a conflict in the Ukraine, impacting supply chains, global pressure on inflation. So the reality is that much change is happening as we speak, and much change is still to come. And this also links very much into digital acceleration. Mm. The ship has sailed, and now we need to catch on. And recently, one of my colleagues actually shared a quote in one of our meetings, and I thought, geez, this is actually a very apt quote for what we are dealing with. So, Vasi, if you're watching, it had long come to my attention that people of accomplishment really sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. And that's a quote from Leonardo da Vinci. So, simply put, let's go and happen to things. Let's get onto the front foot and drive the change that we want to see. And that is clearly coming. Drive towards it.
Yeah, drive towards the change you want to see. Really, it's about what type of leader you want to be and what leader you choose to be. Wow, what a masterclass. Look, I'm learning a lot. I certainly hope that all of you in the room and all online are learning a lot about the past and how to build for the future. Now, to really make the most of all the expertise on hand today, we have now coming over to joining me in conversation, Hugh Hacking, the Executive of Structured Investments and Annuities at Momentum Corporate. Thank you so much, Hugh, for joining us today. Are you well?
Good morning, Tommy. Yes, I'm very well, and it's a real privilege to be here today and listen to some of the wisdoms from people like Lillian.
Yes, definitely. It's really incredible to hear from people like Lillian. Now, Dumo did mention how Momentum Corporate understands how clients want relevant and customized communication. And I just want to give you an opportunity to maybe deep dive and take us into another example of how you understand what clients may require.
Thanks, Tommy. That's a great question. As Dumo says, let's drive towards the change. We know there's change, and that means that we need to evolve the solutions, the fabric of the solutions that we offer to fall in line with that change. So it's not just about the engagement, it's actually the fabric of the solutions themselves. We know that our customers, our clients, members, normal consumers, our business partners, including financial advisors, are under tremendous pressures, and we've heard that from Misa earlier as well. And so we need to make sure that our solutions remain relevant in this context. Specifically, they remain simple for people to understand. They remain transparent so that people can see what they're buying, what they're getting. And most importantly, that they offer really exceptional value. That's important. But we've also heard from earlier that one of the things that we absolutely know is that the one constant is uncertainty in the world. Uncertainty is predominantly around us all the time. And so that impacts everything that we do, and that feeds into investment markets as well. And so we know that in order to save for retirement over the longer term, you need to invest into growth assets. You need to invest into instruments that are going to reflect the volatility of those markets. And as that volatility in the market feeds into your investment, it can have dire consequences on people saving for the longer term. Specifically, if you retire at the moment when markets are down, or if you are in retirement and drawing an income, that volatility can have very negative impacts on you. And so we have to package all of these factors into our solutions. And one of the ways that that's been done in the past is through products called smooth bonus investments, if you think about investment solutions. And what they typically do is they smooth out the volatility in the markets and they provide people with some guarantees. But there have been lots of criticisms of those products around being opaque and being expensive for consumers. And so what we've done is we've looked at this and we've looked at how we can evolve and innovate those products. And so now we have put on the table a new suite of products that take into account some of these problems and evolve to meet the needs of consumers and members. And so we now have our Smooth Edge Smooth Bonus portfolio, which uses smart beta equity investments inside to reduce costs. We've recently, and we're in the process of launching our Universal 50 Smooth product, which reduces the guarantee levels again to reduce cost. And most excitingly, we have partnered to produce a volatility overlay over a market-linked portfolio at extremely low cost that helps people get the best of both worlds. The returns from the market-linked investment together with the management of that volatility that can negatively impact people. And so I'm confident that we are evolving the solutions that we're putting in front of our customers on an ongoing basis.
You speak about how people can invest their money while they're working. You speak to my age group. I won't give my age away in any way. But what happens then with the investments when they get to retirement age?
That's an excellent question, Tommy. And so retirement is a big occasion for people. So we need to continually work with our partners and financial advisors to make sure that we have the right tools on the table, but also that we have the right solutions. People invest maybe for 40 years while they're working towards this retirement outcome. And we need to make sure that in the arsenal, we are able to both provide them with the right information and solutions when they reach retirement. And so we provide a full suite of product options, including life annuities, which provide guaranteed income for life, as well as living annuities, which allow people greater investment flexibility. They provide greater drawdown flexibility as well. And we put these in front of people and we make tools available that allows people to appropriately invest as they go into that retirement phase.
I can think of many factors that can contribute towards investment decisions, but three that really stick out for me are, I think, environmental, social, and governance factors.
Yes.
How do these then contribute towards investment decisions?
Yeah, no, thanks, Tommy. So I prefer to not think about ESG or environmental, social, and governance factors. I tend to think about taking a responsible first approach to investing and to business in general. We need to be responsible because if we're responsible to our environment and to the companies that we serve and to the members that we serve, that's ultimately good for the economy, it's good for business, and that feeds into the returns that people see. So it's about being responsible ultimately. And so we do a lot of work in this space, and specifically if we're thinking around environment and climate and responsible investing, we work with the Association for Saving and Investments in South Africa, better known as ASISA. We are also a signatory to the Code for Responsible Investing in South Africa, or CRISA as it's known. We participate in the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investing, or UNPRI. We are a member of the Global Climate Action 100 Plus initiative, where we specifically engage in the SASOL and ESCOM work groups to look at the just transition. And lastly, we also subscribe to the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. That's all quite a big mouthful, but it comes back down to doing the responsible thing and being responsible and seeing how we can evolve all the time to become more responsible. And so we actually do assessments on an annual basis of investment managers that we work with, other product providers that we work with, to ensure that they're embodying and working with the principles around ESG. And we do overall assessments of our partners and of the investment managers, and we use that appropriately so that we can invest appropriately. I actually urge people that are watching today or in the room to actually go to our website and actually have a look at our ESG-related content and to engage with it, because there's a lot there, and we've done a lot over the last few years.
Now, I get the privilege to ask the really great questions. There's a number of buzzwords that are going around at the moment, and one of them is transformation. So I need to do us all justice that are watching online and in the room and ask you, what is Momentum Corporate doing around transformation in the investment space?
Well, first of all, Tommy, transformation is not a buzzword. It's a very important issue in our economy. Secondly, it's not what are we going to do. It's also about what have we done. We've done a lot of work in this space, but we need to continue to do more, as do all our partners and as does every business in the country, because transformation is the thing that will take us forward, right? It's really critical and really important. But in our business, we've made concerted efforts to shift the representation of blacks in management positions at all levels, not just senior management, middle management, lower management, at all levels, and we've made great progress there. In addition to that, we look at preferential procurement, and so we have targeted procurement towards specific types of businesses. And last year, for example, we targeted more than 800 million specifically to procure from black woman-owned businesses. So these are big numbers, and they create tremendous effects in the economy. We also look at our empowerment finance and how do we target into specific opportunities. And so last year we invested 13.5 billion into empowerment initiatives and a further 1.7 billion into specifically developing black-owned businesses. But what's also really important for us as a business is to think about how do we invest and where do we invest, and how do we use our investments to make a difference as well. And so I'm really pleased to say that at this particular point in time, on an asset-weighted basis, the assets that we manage within Momentum Corporate, 40% of the businesses that we use to invest, to manage those investments, are black-owned. So in other words, the businesses that invest on our behalf are, on a weighted basis, 40% black-owned. And that number we're striving to improve on an ongoing basis. Further, 60% of the assets are managed by black investment professionals. And we also want to increase that number going forward. And lastly, of the local assets, and I'm referring to the local assets, because obviously foreign managers are not subject to these statistics. Of the local assets, almost 3/4 are managed by level 1 contributing managers. So I believe that we've made huge strides already. Can we afford to sit back? No. We need to continue to do more. I hope that helps answer some of that question.
I think that deserves a round of applause to Momentum Corporate, honestly speaking. So apparently I'm having too much fun asking the questions, so we are going to take some questions from people online, not questions from live. You're going to have a chance to network with everybody afterwards, so sorry for the ones that are joining us live. And I'm not going to pose them directly to anybody. I'm just going to read them, and then you can let me know which one of you is really comfortable to answer it. I prefer to ask questions verbatim so that I don't misinterpret the question from the person that sent it through. So the first question we have is, you spoke about a volatility overlay. Please explain on that a bit and specifically on the costs. You want to take that?
I will.
You're smiling at me. You want to take that
one?
I'll
take that. It's a very exciting initiative that we've worked on that's in the market at the moment. And What it does is it provides volatility management on a commercially available market-linked investment portfolio. And it uses our smoothing technology to do that. In other words, it takes out the big bumps and the big dips in that investment portfolio sees. And it does all of that at a mere 20 basis points, which I believe is a really excellent value. The alternative would be for a person approaching retirement to invest in a more conservative portfolio. So maybe instead of investing in one of our factor 6 portfolios, which produces a CPI plus 6 investment target, they reduce that to a factor 4 or even a factor 3 portfolio, which is CPI plus 4 or plus 3. That means they're taking a 2% hit in terms of investment return over the longer term. Instead, by applying the overlay, they can reduce that reduction in overall performance by 20 basis points or 0.2%.
You seem to be quite popular, Hugh. I think you're going to be answering most of these questions here. So it says, does Funds at Work offer smooth bonus portfolios?
I think people love the technical stuff. You see, I think that's why. But yes, absolutely, Funds at Work does offer smooth bonus portfolios, and it offers our new range of smooth bonus portfolios as well, like Smooth Edge. And it's available to all members, and all advisors are able to add that to their toolbox and make it available as an employer default as well, should the profile of the members be suitable.
Look, I think we have time for one more. Again, it's you. It says, you mentioned this. It's okay, Dumo. It's okay. It says, you mentioned the Smooth Edge portfolio used smart beta. Does that mean that you're moving away from active management?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think, but smart beta is a smart technology. And so, talking about tech, it's applying real tech behind the scenes in the product. And of course, it applies only to the equity investment component. And the other components in the portfolio are still actively managed. Bond portfolio, your offshore components are, for the most part, actively managed, to select, as well as your alternatives. So no, we absolutely firmly believe in active management, but we also believe in the ability to use technology smartly where it can make a real difference in the underlying expenses of the products.
I'm feeling a little bit bad. There's no questions, but is there anything you would like to add to anything, Dumo?
Well, to this, or just broadly?
No, in general.
Yeah, look, I was quite glad that, this new world of work has actually enabled us to reach more and more South Africans with these kind of platforms. I don't think any of us could have foreseen a scenario where you would have some people in the room and actually a few thousand outside the room, and that we can actually get to share, this kind of information in a way that is actually very accessible to everyone. These used to be like very closed sessions, and if you're lucky enough to crack an invite, you might get the information. And I suppose it goes back to, something important that we have taken up as Momentum Corporate. So we have made quite a firm statement around the fact that we want to demystify employee benefits. This is an industry that really prides itself on being complex. We are special. We are different. No one gets us, And even when we come to clients, we want to show off the complexity and hoping that in that complexity, they then rely on us a lot more. But we're saying, let's pull down the veil. Now it's about making this whole ecosystem more accessible, moving from being intelligible to being understandable.
I like that.
And really promoting broader access to this information. So we've got a website, www.employeebenefitsexplained.co.za.
I like that.
So the next time you come across a complex term or there's something you're not quite sure about, just log on. It's free and it's for everyone. And I suppose the other important thing here is very often access to advice, at least the perception around access to advice that most South Africans have, is that it's expensive or it's only reserved for a select few. But I think the way the industry has opened up, in recent times, especially with the default regulations, every fund now has to provide retirement benefit counseling. And every fund, at least in the funds where we operate, we do partner with financial advisors. So the idea that, financial advice is only accessible to the higher income earners or people in more senior positions, I mean, we have to debunk that completely. You can access advice, and it doesn't cost you anything, beyond, the fee that you would pay if, within the product. So this advice is accessible to everyone. And why not use it if it's there? So, let's break down these barriers and make this industry a lot more accessible and relevant.
And why not use it if it's there?
It's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
Lumisa, would you like to add anything in general before we close off?
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. I think Dumo has touched on it already because I look after the members. We are in trouble when it comes to getting member information. And I know that the audience that is listening now, it's the people that can actually help us to get that member information. So a cell phone number will go a long way because we do have solutions and things that we are doing to actually communicate directly with the members. So that would help Momentum Corporate, but that will help the members as well. Thank you, Tammy.
Well, there you have it. A special thank you once again to Lumisa, to Dumo, and to Hugh. And of course, a special thank you to our guest, Lillian Barnard, for their insightful addresses, for her insightful address. When you arm yourself with illuminating information and prioritize tenacity, you can make the shift from resilience to renewal and beyond. But don't worry if you missed any of today, Must Know Intelligence, because today, still today before midnight, Momentum Corporate will be launching the Momentum Corporate Insights 2022 paper detailing all the insights from this year's survey, which you can access immediately on the Momentum Corporate Partnership Connect website. Please don't forget to follow our conversation. Don't just follow it. We need you to actually tweet and post and like and engage for the conversation to keep going, because it doesn't end here when the live stream shuts or when we're done with engaging with each other live here today. So please keep it going, because the information is quite valuable, of course. Please do so on Twitter and LinkedIn at Momentum Corp 1 on Twitter and Momentum Corporate on LinkedIn. Share any of your money shot pictures as well for those that are here today. Please remember, use the hashtag success for your people. Well, then, all that is left for me to say is thank you to our audience that is here. Thank you to our audience as well that is joining us virtually. Without you, none of this actually means anything. So thank you to you. With you, we can really collaborate and leave surviving behind in 2022 and make thriving our new normal. Remember that, our new normal. Now thriving is the new normal in the future. So for the last time today on this stage, to all of you online, the people in the room, please stay seated. We've got other announcements. My name is Tammy Ngadibeng. It's been a pleasure. Okay, so everybody.